Hi everyone, let's talk about Karuba das Kartenspiel. So I'm on board with card game versions of things. Really enjoyed the Castles of Burgundy one. I'm sure there are many more that are escaping me right now, but I really enjoyed Karuba as well in the first place. And so this definitely has a very different feel because it's not one of those bingo style games, the call out and everybody gets the same thing. You've got it's a very nice, very fast, so simple to teach experience. And Karuba was not a incredibly simple game, but it was one of those that would be a nice introduction for people. This is on a similar note, but lightning fast. It can be done, especially 2 players. And I mean, I don't know how long the playthrough is going to end up being, but it can be like a 10-minute thing. It's ridiculously fast, and still you still have plenty of things to think about where you're trying to second guess the other people with the total of the numbers you want out, even though you've got in your mind that you desperately want these things out, and the more useful things have lower numbers on them. The more useful paths anyway. It's easy to just make sure you can win by just putting temples and adventurers out because they have the highest numbers, but just connecting them together in adjacent tiles isn't really going to help you that much. You really want to get a few extra points so that you can try and get the edge over your opponents. So I really like the system, and as I said, the speed of the game and the look of it. Again, just having Karuba out on the table again is a nice thing. But I will say that as a 2-player experience, I don't think it's at its strongest at all. This is a 2 to 6 player game. I've played it at 2 players and at 4 players, and I have to say at 4 players it was far more enjoyable for the fact that you've got every stage of the thought and the reveal and who has to discard a card was far more interesting at 4 players, because it's at 2 players it can sometimes it just kind of falls flat, the you have to discard a card thing, because it can very easily, because of the cards that you happen to have drawn and the decisions that you made based on that, it can very easily lead to not a one-sided game, but that one person has to keep discarding a card and the other person just gets way more chance to fill in their their little 4x4 grid than the other person. And the more players that you add to this, there's less chance of that happening to the same person, because there are a lot of other people just in similar situations that it could happen to. So it's going to be spread out more, so one person isn't necessarily going to be feeling it as much. And just in general, it's just nicer seeing all of these things, because it's a simultaneous game. It doesn't really take much longer, apart from you're all reading out your totals. There's going to be 2 more totals to read out each round. But yeah, in general it was way more interesting. And yeah, as I said, it felt not that we were being mean to each other, because you can't affect each other really, apart from picking a total, and you don't know what the other person's got, so you are just kind of balancing it between your options. It can, as I said, yeah, it can feel harsh on one person just by the fact that one person in the 2-player experience can have to keep discarding things. And yeah, I think I'm just repeating myself now, but yeah, in general, in 4 players, it was a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. And I imagine that is just going to carry over into 6 players as well, because when it's mostly simultaneous, you're not really going to add much time to the game. It's probably still going to be about 15 minutes or so. Maybe a little longer than that, maybe 20 minutes if you have to teach people the game. But yeah, it's very simple to get into people's heads. But I think this is one of the games where the more players you have, the better. And while it was a lot more enjoyable, and I did like it, it was a lot better for me as a 2-player game, as a 4-player game. As someone who generally plays 2 players, it's not going to be one for me really. But I think if you have got those numbers, then it's going to be a really enjoyable game for you. But you can see the playthrough. It's probably only going to be about 10-15 minutes long, where you can get an idea of what the game is like and decide whether it would be for you. But that is Karuba the card game. Thanks a lot for watching everyone, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.